All right, my friends, Royd Free Sr. back today. I know I've been somewhat focused on 80s guys, powerlifters and bodybuilders, and we're going to kind of stay in that vein. I kind of was aware of this guy, but didn't know that much about him until I just really ran into his Facebook page, and he's a really good dude. He's a family man, he's a man of faith. He's been on a ton of covers. He's one of the most photographed bodybuilders over the last few decades. Still trains. He's 59. Does what he can, but he's had, I think when I was looking at his Facebook page, he had like 6 surgeries in the last few years. He's been trying to get back into shape to do like a Masters drug-free competition, but the surgeries have just obviously held him back from that. And his most recent surgery was a hip replacement, which fortunately went very well. And I can relate because I had hip replacement myself about eight or 9 years ago, and I'm in good shape now. I mean, I can deadlift decent weight, and I can squat and everything. So it all worked out okay, and I'm sure the same will happen with Eddie. I'm going to show you a series of some of his muscle covers, and the years are kind of mixed up. They're not really in chronological order, but these are just a fraction of what's out there, honestly. Like I said, he was on a ton of covers, been in and you can find interviews and videos and stuff online of him without really any trouble. But I felt like I needed to do something because I especially like to promote Christian bodybuilders and guys that are into fitness, faith, family. And he actually does pretty well in the financial department, too. And I think maybe he's, blessed by God in that department. Has had a lot of endorsements, worked with some supplement companies and stuff. And then we'll talk about he was in the WBF, which I was completely unaware of until I just started learning about Eddie. I always learn when I put these videos together. The WBF was a short-lived federation that only had 13 bodybuilders and was headed up by Vince McMahon, and he was trying to compete with the IFBB. And we'll have some further details about that further on down in the video. He chose Tom Platz to be his front man, and some other top level. Danny Padilla was one of the guys. A couple of the at least a couple of the pro wrestlers, like the Ultimate Warrior and some other guys, had bodybuilding backgrounds. And Vince himself is a pretty big dude, does a little training, but it was kind of an ill-fated venture. He thought he was going to compete directly with the IFBB. They made the announcement at the end of the closing ceremonies of the 90 Mr. Olympia. And you can imagine it. This is Tom Platz making the announcement. They could have shut off his mic, but they didn't. And I'm sure they weren't too happy about this. But they figured, okay, let him have his chance, So anyway, Eddie was one of the guys that one of the 13 bodybuilders that they chose. Eddie's just a good-looking dude. In fact, they picked him. I'll show you here. He became the model for the He-Man doll back in the day, the Masters of the Universe series. And the only thing, the doll looks a little bit different because he's got long hair, and I haven't seen any pictures of Eddie with long hair, though maybe he did when he was a teenager. He's another guy that started out as a teenager, wanted to play football, had aspirations to be a pro player, but that's why he started weight training, and he got very strong, and he started going in contests and set a couple world records as a teenager, benched like 575 and then 610 in a couple different classes, I guess, which is pretty awesome for a teenager, no doubt. Then he started going in bodybuilding contests. You'll see at the end here, I'm going to have a list of his competitions. And he was just kicking butt as a teenager, especially for the first 5 or 6 years of his career. And then he went on to get his IFBB pro card. Competed in a lot of high-level meets, never really was top level like Mr. Olympia guy. And I think largely because, I mean, I'm not going to tell you that the guy didn't do drugs, because of course he did. But I don't think he wanted to do as much as it took. And in fact, that's why he said he retired in 99, because the mass monsters he just couldn't compete with without doing a ton of drugs. And he didn't want to do that because he's a family guy. Here he is with his daughter. He's got 2 children, still married to the same woman, has their kids, goes to church on a regular basis. As they say, he's a big family man. He's a man of faith. I started following him on Facebook, and you can see it's IFBB Pro Eddie Robinson. You can follow him. He has a Bible verse here, so obviously he's a Christian. He's a man of faith. He goes to church regularly. After 9/11, him and a church group went up to New York and just tried to help out as much as they could, financially and otherwise. As part of the WBF, they also did promotional stuff where they did the arm wrestling. As I'm going to mention here he is against Sergeant Slaughter, oddly enough, arm wrestling. And he actually, as I'm going to show here, after the first one, I think it was Panama Jack, arm wrestling championships at Disney, he got a $15,000 prize, and he donated it to charity. Also did some charity game shows, Special Olympics, March of Dimes, Melanoma Foundation. Here he is with his church group. This is after 9/11. This is all this stuff that they were distributing to people in need in New York City. So really just a good dude along the lines of Chuck Sipes and Paul Anderson and Paul Wren and Lee Haney. Not just talking about his faith in Jesus Christ, but living it out, putting his money where his mouth is. And I appreciated that about him. Now, of course, we're going to have to show one of his workout routine, which I find interesting in that relative to the other guys of the time, his volume was relatively low. It's not exactly a Mike Mentzer hit workout, but it's compared to like Schwarzenegger and some of those guys. He only trained 4 days a week. So it's like 2 days on, rest day, 2 days on again, and then 2 rest days, and then start over. But his overall volume is not that crazy, and I think he was really concerned with more with doing the heavy weight and kind of harking back to his powerlifting days. But definitely a strong dude all around, and pretty interesting workout, I think, and not too crazy. And I think again largely because I'm sure he was enhanced, but I don't think he wanted to take quite as much as those guys, and the guys today are even crazier. And other than his surgeries, he seems to be in pretty good health at 59. Same height as me, and at his peak on bodybuilding, he was 220, which is about as heavy as I ever was. Now, the 220 that I wasn't anything like the 220 that Eddie was, no doubt about it. Lay out his diet here, which was obviously he really strived for the digestive enzyme kind of thing, and trying to keep really good gut health, as he felt that was key to making the most of all the food you eat. And of course, you want to have quality, nutrient-dense foods and all that kind of thing. Now here he is with this was the last WBF, I think it was the last one, magazine, which was the World Bodybuilding Federation from Vince. I'm going to talk about that a little bit here. It folded in 92 because Well, they tried to do pay-per-view. That was Vince's dream for, having bodybuilding on pay-per-view. And he only sold like 3,000, views on pay-per-view, which obviously, compared to his investment, he even hired Lou Ferrigno he was like the highest paid guy there. I think he made almost $1 million, but never competed in one of their competitions. And the 1 year he was supposed to, he had carpal tunnel syndrome surgery, which was an excuse for not competing in the WBF. But then in '92, he went back to the IFBB and the Mr. Olympia contest. Could have been about drugs because they were touting drug testing that they were going to do in the WBF, and then the first year was like wasn't so great really. And in '92 they did really do drug testing, and so a lot of guys were out of shape because they were off drugs for a while. So thanks for watching, and please stay tuned by subscribing, and I'm out. See ya.